Hello, welcome to the video, welcome to JH Reviews. The series Spartacus House of Ashur has now concluded, and it's time to review the series. This will be a spoiler-free review, but I will be talking about the story, the characters, and referencing the original story, so please be warned. So let's not keep you waiting, let's begin. Spartacus House of Ashur is an alternate history continuation of the original Spartacus series. Imagining a world where Ashur survives his death in Spartacus' vengeance. Rewarded for his role in crushing the slave rebellion, Ashur is granted ownership of Batiatus' former ludus in Capua. Now a dominus rather than a schemer in the shadows, the series follows Ashur as he navigates brutal Roman politics, rebuilds the gladiator school, and tests the boundaries of tradition by training a formidable female gladiator named Aquilia, all while fighting to shape his own legacy in Capua. Before I move on to House of Ashur, I think it's worth giving a bit of context to the original show. Spartacus is a show that deserves its own full review. Across 4 brilliant seasons, it delivers a stylized historical drama that you could loosely compare to Gladiator and 300, but it very quickly becomes something entirely its own. There is a lot of political scheming, betrayal, power play, and of course, amazing action. But beneath all the blood and spectacle is a powerful story about brotherhood, freedom, loyalty, and rebellion. The characters are incredibly memorable, the violence is unapologetic, and the language has this poetic, uniquely Spartacus style to it. Most importantly, the emotional weight only deepens as the series goes on. By the time it ends, it's no longer about gladiators. It's about legacy and sacrifice, and for me, it's one of my favourite shows of all time. Now the question is, does the show live up to its predecessor? I can say that it laid the foundations to be great, but you can't help but compare House of Ashur to the original Spartacus series, where at least the first 2 seasons of the Spartacus series, where the show is mainly set in Capua and the gladiator school itself, it reminded me a bit of Gods of the Arena and Blood and Sand, at least the earlier parts of Blood and Sand, where there's a lot of plotting and scheming and the idea of rising up from a lesser house or position and trying to gain respect from those in power. At first, it was a little bit difficult to get invested in. Ashur, essentially a villain in the original series, being the main focus of the show, is a risky choice to build a series around. That said, it was good to see the world of Spartacus return to our screens. The familiar themes were all back: ambition, manipulation, loyalty, and how far someone would go to stay alive and relevant. The world, the politics, and the language all felt familiar, and I was glad to see it all back. The show did feel a little bit more cinematic and polished in its production quality compared to the original. Sometimes that worked, and sometimes it felt slightly at odds with the grit of the older series. That said, it stuck to the stylized violence, sharp set and costume design, and gritty tone I would naturally expect. Now this is where it gets a little bit difficult to talk about the individual characters of the show without comparing them to the original. There are many characters, so I'm going to try and stick to the primary ones. We start with Ashur, played once again by Nick Tarabay, who delivers a strong and convincing performance. Ashur is no longer the schemer we knew before, he's now in a position of power as a dominus. For me though, as the lead character, he lacked the emotional anchor that Spartacus himself once provided. At times, Ashur felt closer to Batiatus from the original series, and while Batiatus became one of my favourite and most iconic characters, that same presence doesn't fully translate here when Ashur is placed at the centre of the story. Aquilia, played by Tanika Davis, did a wonderful job. I can imagine there was a lot of pressure going into this role being a main character in a Spartacus series. I felt that the show stayed true to itself and didn't make adjustments that would feel forced or controversial. I thought she was a refreshing focus point, especially seeing how other characters reacted to a female gladiator. For me, there was a lot of interest in her storyline, where she came from, why she holds back, and what happened in her past. I bought into it. Aquilia goes through her own struggles with her past and finding strength and purpose, something the show has always done so well. Aquilia is a good fighter, though I can understand why some people may struggle to see her go up against larger male gladiators and come out victorious. Personally, I thought they kept it fairly grounded. Chorus, played by Graham McTavish, left me feeling a bit 50-50. On one hand, I wasn't a fan of his entire storyline, and I couldn't help but compare him to Onomaus, the legendary Doctore from the original series. That said, he and Ashur had good chemistry and worked well on screen together. He was very well played and still a standout character. It's fair to say that Ashur comes up against many antagonists in this show and never really catches a break. There was always someone who wanted to see him suffer, humiliated or dead. I wouldn't say the show had one primary villain. Most of the characters are working towards seeing the House of Ashur fall. The father and son gladiator dynamic was a nice touch and added some much needed emotional weight. It allowed those characters to grow and establish themselves within the story. As always, there is a love interest element, and in this series there were several. This is where we see Ashur at his most vulnerable emotionally, and it worked for me. As always, the show is not afraid to display any forms of intimacy. It's like a Spartacus tradition. The fighting and choreography were brilliant in my opinion. The scenes weren't choppy or unrealistic, they felt aggressive and the stakes always felt high. Overall, Spartacus House of Ashur is good. For me, part of that is simply being back in this world again. It did feel like a slightly hollow version of the original series. There was no real comic relief or truly memorable, quotable moments. Moments like we had with Batiatus or earlier seasons.
What, I wonder, does good Solonius receive for convincing me to spread cheeks and accept deeper ramming?
If you're neutral on the series, I still think it's worth trying. Especially if you're into classical civilizations, the Gladiator or 300 vibe, and strong drama with twists where you're never quite sure what a character's next move will be. I'm definitely on board for a season 2, and if they continue this what-if style storytelling, I'm intrigued to see who they'd focus on next. So here are my ratings for the show. As usual, I like to leave a line that describes what I watched. For me, Spartacus House of Ashur is a positive start. It's laid the foundations and I am invested where the story and characters go next. I rate the series a 7 out of 10. I feel very positive about this show. It was brave, it wasn't afraid to take risks, and it keeps to its roots of fantastic storytelling in a theatrical way. Characters being pushed to almost their limits and strong twists and turns. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there's this giant shadow hanging over it from the original series. I'm also not sure Ashur was the right character to centre this scenario around. Other what-if ideas like Batiatus or Gannicus feel like they might have been more achievable and more naturally likeable. However, I am glad the world of Spartacus is back. As always, I appreciate a good soundtrack, but Spartacus House of Ashur, it was a 2 out of 10 for me. I know that's harsh, but honestly, I don't remember any of it. It wasn't bad, it did what it needed to do for emotional beats and action scenes, but nothing stood out or elevated the experience for me. Cast-wise, Spartacus always nails it. I wasn't a fan of Caesar, especially as the role was previously played by another actor, but the new Caesar actor did what he had to do. Overall, I'd give the cast a solid 8 out of 10. So that's my review on Spartacus House of Ashur. I'm sorry if I missed a lot out. The series reviews demand a lot of time and attention, and I didn't want to break everything down, but I wanted to give you an idea of what to expect and my thoughts. If you stayed this long, I really appreciate it, and I hope you'll join me for the next one. If you haven't seen the original Spartacus series, I genuinely hope you do. It's a brilliant show that starts and ends strongly, and most importantly, without controversy. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. For now, take care, and I'll see you soon.